Hi, friends. Welcome back to Liam Teaches Chess. Sorry, I haven't been doing my tournament reviews. Got a little caught up over the Thanksgiving holidays. Played 3 tournaments that I haven't reviewed, so I think I'm going to try to get all 3 out this week. We're kicking things back to November 16th is when I played this quad. A quad is when you play 3 players of the same rating. What I remember about this week is I hit my peak high on chess.com Blitz. It's around like 2095, not quite 2100, but it's playing a lot of Blitz. Wasn't doing the training I should be doing, which is, playing, doing puzzles, etc. And I think the Blitz habits, like it's fine to play Blitz. I'm a believer that Blitz can be part of improving at chess. I will have a video out soon about how I went from, like 1200 USCF to 1900 USCF pretty quickly. I think Blitz is part of that, but I do think doing too much Blitz can lead to bad habits, and that is partially what happened to me in these games. Some good things from Blitz though can be learning openings, etc. If you've been following along, round 1 here, I'm playing against Kai. He's rated about 2050. We played twice to my memory. I won the first time. I think maybe this is our second game. So I'm 1-0 against him. I do play him a couple times in the upcoming tournaments, but so yeah, we start with E4, C5, and if you remember last time, I think I had played a Scandinavian, and I was like, all right, I'm doing Sicilian for better or for worse. And I don't know everything in the Sicilian, right? I'm still working through the openings. So D4 takes, C3 takes. It's a very common gambit line. White is down a pawn, right? 4 to, or sorry, 6 to 7. Uh, but what do they have in return? They have a lead in development. And so I played E6, bishop C4, knight C6, knight F3, D6, castles, knight F6, queen E2, bishop E7, rook D1. And here is where, moves I considered were, or one line I considered was queen C7, defending the pawn and getting out of the pin of the rook. Knight E5, a very obvious move, hitting my queen. Queen B8, you tuck your queen on B8 in some Sicilians. Bishop F4, piling up pressure on D6, 3 times versus 2. And then E5 is what I was thinking. And white would play something maybe like bishop G5, followed by stuff like knight C3, D5, and try to play a position like where they get the good knight versus a bad bishop. Maybe my D pawn drops in some lines. They have a lead in development. Some of my pieces are kind of silly. Thought about that. Oops, spoiler. And I also thought about bishop D7, just kind of allowing myself to lose this pawn, or I didn't really see the queen B8 idea here with the same idea. So I thought about bishop D7. And then, from reviewing the Blitz games, I remembered one of the engine lines is in some of the lines I play knight A5. And this is an example of how looking at computer moves can get you messed up versus just like thinking about the position intuitively. And so, yeah, knight A5 is just a blunder. My hope is that I'm going to get this bishop. But he simply plays E5, and I'm in trouble, right? Like, first off, if I take the bishop, he takes my knight, right? And maybe I move back. He takes my knight, and I'm just down a piece like that, right? 3 pieces versus 2, because he takes my knight and attacks my bishop, right? So I don't get to save both pieces here. So I settle on knight D7. Things are not going well. He takes on D6. I play bishop F6, and he plays bishop D3, pointing at H7. I castle. He plays knight E4. and I play B6, where I know, like, some ideas here are just taking my knight, playing bishop G5, and then you can take this knight, and, if I take back the queen, stuff like queen E4, threatening mate on H7, and threatening my loose rook was a problem for me, which obviously B6 contributes to. But I thought I could get my bishop out. I just realized I'm worse here, and I'd be lying if I said I remembered everything. So I played B6. Maybe I was trying to get knight C5. He takes, I take back, bishop G5. Bishop B7. So I think, I thought, I'm like, okay, so now on this, at least I am covering here. Maybe I can get rid of his knight. Um, I think I'm like holding things, but he plays knight E5, and I thought his intention was bishop, whatever. Like I make a move, rook C8, bishop takes, queen takes, and knight D7, forking my pieces. Um, And so I play bishop d5, thinking that I'm stopping, because one of the points of knight e5 is I cannot take on d6 due to bishop takes h7, which would win my queen because he attacks my king with check, a discovered attack. And so I play bishop d5, just totally missing the other point of knight e5, which is knight g4, putting pressure on the pinned piece. And I'm totally busted here. But I try my best. I take on d6. He takes on f6. I take back. And he plays bishop h6, which you can see chess.com's giving a mistake. I thought a couple moves for him were good for here. I thought maybe bishop f6 was good, coupled with a threat of queen g4 or queen h5, tickling h7, threatening here. I thought maybe just queen h5 right away was good, threatening queen h7 check, mate, and stuff like bishop f6. And so I was really happy to see this move bishop h6, which he's really low on time at this point. And I was like, look, if all I lose is the exchange here, that's playable. That's playable for what I just thought I was getting mated after these other moves. And so he plays bishop h6. I think the engine might maybe even like sacking and going down this line. And I just get mated. There's rook lifts in the position. Everything is bad for me. Um, and so yeah, like here I don't save my rook. Obviously, I get mated, but I play f5, stopping queen g4, stopping the bishop from seeing h7, and I'm like, look, if all I loses this rook, like maybe I can hold. This bishop is a pretty strong piece. This knight's silly, but it has ways to get back in the game. Um, plays queen e3, threatening queen g5, checkmate, right? So I play king h8, hoping to get in rook g8. The other queen e7 loses to stuff like queen g3 as well. So king h8, he does grab the exchange. Unfortunately, I have to take back with the queen, I think. Ooh, bless me. Um, and why did I think that? Because let me see if I can remember. Seeing stars when I just sneezed. I think it's just that leaving this queen lined up with the rook is going to run into some issues for me. And, probably queen d4 stuff is not great for me. So I took with the queen. So queen d4, I can at least defend. Takes on f5. The point being, if I take back, I lose the bishop. I play queen g7. He plays bishop e4, trying to get rid of my good piece. I play knight c4. Again, we're really low on time. I'm just trying to make him think here. Queen e2 is played. Bishop e4 also stops any dreams of rook g8, threatening mate. I take on b2, the point being if you take my knight, my queen defends it, and I'm, attacking your pieces. And here's where I ran really low on time, so my notation doesn't finish. I do end up losing this game. And, there's lots of types of losses in chess. I would tack this loss up to partially me not knowing the opening well enough, right? Like changing openings, you're gonna lose some games like this, right? Like I'm playing a strong opponent, 2050. We had played once before in this same opening, and I'd actually won that game. Um, and so I lost this one. And then yeah, to also tack it up to just like playing a lot of blitz, playing too quickly, and reviewing engine moves without like knight a5 is a move, but not in this position. Like in a different position, knight a5 is a move at times, probably with like the bishop on d7 and myself castle or something. And so I wasn't, it's just kind of an annoying loss, right? Because it's not like I lost because I got significantly outplayed. I lost, so like I didn't learn a lot. What I learned was like I need to know this opening better, and I since have. I since have put some time into this gambit. It's played a lot in blitz, um, and funny enough, like I played it a lot in blitz up to this week. I remember this again. I reached the peak blitz high, and I just had never lost. I never considered knight a5, at all. Um, I think I just played like queen c7 a lot. And you notice that my position would love to have the move pawn a6 in, so I've since changed how I play against this a little bit, which I guess I won't go over until we get that game, in case any opponents are watching. So we're playing a quad. Again, a quad is when you're grouped to similar rated opponents. In game 2, I'm playing with the white pieces against Goron. If you saw my past videos, he's a very interesting opponent. He's in his late 30s or so, and he moves just instantly. Just very unique in that case. So c4, knight f6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7. He's playing a King's Indian setup. Knight f3, castles, castles, d6, knight c3. We're both developing our pieces, attacking the center. Knight c6. And then the best move and main move for white is d4. D4, this is just, a fianchettoed King's Indian, Catalan King Indian. I don't know the exact name, but King's Indian setup here where white has fianchettoed. Ideas are e4, d5. Black typically moves this knight, tries to get an e5, f5, and pawn storm. And I'd had okay results as this. I chose to play d3, which is also fine. It's kind of like a more normal English setup. Doesn't contend for the center as much. He played knight h5, preparing to move for his f pawn here. I played rook b1, getting the rook off the diagonal with the bishop. Perhaps ideas of b4, b5 one day. He plays e5. I play bishop g5, attacking his queen. Plays f6, and I drop the bishop back to b2 to defend the knight, so that when b4 hits, my knight is defended. Plays f5, so he's expanding on the king side. Basic ideas here is white tries to play on the queen side. Don't get checkmated. Black tries to checkmate. b4. I play this for the black side, so I know a little bit about it. He plays f4. I think the engine wanted me to play something like e3, making f4 harder to get in. I think also moving this knight and playing f4 is an idea at times. But I played b4. I'm not really as like, I'm more of just like playing off of intuition versus calculating because, like both ideas are thematic and you can get away with that sometimes, but you should also calculate. So laziness, blitz habit, all coming in here. f4, b5 hitting the knight, knight e7. I mean, this knight wants to come over here anyways. Queen c2, h6 to support g5, g4. I play rook fc1, g5, and I drop my knight into d5, thinking that one he takes, which he did. Now I have a backward c pawn, which I control, and I can put pressure on. But he simply plays rook f7, and it's not really clear how I take advantage of my position. And also, like, I have issues. G4 is coming. F3 could be an idea. This knight's going to move. This h pawn's going to roll too. And I just don't think I really dealt with this setup very well, and I don't exactly know. I think some of my pieces are a little awkwardly placed. I played bishop a5, threatening to take on c7 with my bishop. Simply plays b6. I drop the bishop to b4. Maybe there's tactics I one day of taking on d6. He plays bishop f5. I play knight d2, trying to reroute to the e4 square and not allow g4 to hit with tempo. He plays g4. He's all sorts of ideas here. Taking f3. I jump my knight into e4. He plays knight f6. And I thought about a couple things here, like queen c6 is a move I'm thinking about, tickling the rook, perhaps threatening to sack on d6, but I didn't really see what to do after bishop d7, just kicking my queen back, you know? Um, I thought about, just stuff like bishop c3 here. I thought about taking on f4 and then bishop c3. And I don't like the decision I came up with in the game, which was um I had thought that like the knight taking this pawn could be annoying for me at times, so I went ahead and grabbed it, but this is a terrible move because it brings his queen into the attack on my king. And here's where I'm like, ooh, things are not going well. Right? Like I have weaknesses to target, but it's not really easy to get at them. So I play rook b3 with the idea of rook c3 and rook c7. Plays h5. I play rook c3. He plays rook c8. And again, I'm just like playing off intuition. I don't really calculate everything. I don't even know if there is any saving myself here. Uh, this is not good. It's not good that the rook and queen's lined up on me. It's not good that uh, my opponent's pawns are storming in. It's not good that all my pieces are over here, not in the action. I can't take here because obviously I would lose my queen like that. So I go for queen a4, just hoping I'm not getting mated and trying to take some pawns. He plays h4. I take on a7, and he plays c5. I did see this, but the point is he discovers an attack on my queen and attacks my bishop. I took his b pawn. He takes on g3. And I had thought that like maybe I'm holding if I play like rook f1 or something here and just admit that I'm wrong and go back with the rook, or maybe capturing, but I'm probably just getting my teeth kicked in here, where after takes, which you can see the engine says is a mistake, simply h3 hits and it's all over for me, because the point is this pawn really restricts my king. So something like bishop e4 would lose to bishop takes. It doesn't really matter what white does. White has no good moves. Queen f2, king h1, queen f1, rook takes, rook h1, checkmate. Little puzzle rush for you there. Bishop h1 loses to stuff like bishop takes d3. Doesn't matter what white does. Again, there's no defending f2 is the point, because bishop takes, rook takes, and it's like, how, I can't defend f2. I have no good checks that do anything either. If I take with the queen, obviously he just takes back. And if I take with the rook, I interfere with my queen c and f2, and this is mate. If I play bishop f1, the same thing happens. Bishop takes d3 or whatever move. If I take here, the same thing happens. So yeah, I've just walked in myself into a mating net here. I think I did settle on bishop f1. He took on d3. I took on c5. He took with the rook. Play bishop g2. Doesn't really matter. And I got checkmated. So I'm 0-2. I think this game is instructive for a couple reasons. Number one, like, in the future, I'm just going to play d4. Um, just more solid. And number 2, like, you can't just make a bunch of moves on intuition and think you're gonna get away with it. You got to sit there and calculate, especially when your opponent's plan is, like, pretty obvious, like, they're pawn storming you. I know this, I play this from the black side. And so, yeah, I'm 0 into Goron, by the way, also around 2050. My live rating was, like, 1830 or 1860, so I am underrated. Brings us to our last game here, playing with the black pieces against a player named Ben. Played him a couple times. Think I have a plus score. He's rated like 1930 and change. And I think this game's very instructive. It goes d4, knight f6. So I'm playing the King's Indian this time. Knight f3, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3, castles, e4, d6 to stop any e5 stuff. Bishop e2, e5. The point being that it looks like white is attacking this twice, but if takes, or if, sorry, if takes, trade queens, take. It looks like you're up a pawn. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 versus 6. But pause and find the tactic for yourself, or I can just tell you, if you don't, you have knight takes e4, where you discover attack on the knight. They take your knight, you take their knight, you've equalized. And if they think they can trick you with knight takes f7, where they think that, oh, I'm attacking your rook. So they think like king takes, knight takes, and they think they still want a pawn like that, right? 6 versus 5. Well, you have the intermezzo, bishop takes knight, check. They must take back, and you win a piece, 3 versus 2. So that is why my opponent plays bishop e3. I play knight c6, queen d2, knight g4, harassing the bishop, bishop g5, f6, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3. I took on d4. He takes back. I take back. He takes with the queen. And I think for a while and play queen e7. My original intention was to play f5, but I thought after queen d5, you know, king h8, um, that worst he could take or something, and I didn't really know what I'm achieving here. And so I played queen e7 with the intention of the same thing, f5, but against queen d5, I can play bishop e6, and my bishop is defended attacking the queen. He plays f3, and I thought about going for this line, which is the top engine move. You attack the queen moves somewhere, you attack the bishop, they take you, I take them, they take you. And white's left with tripled pawns and a rook pointed at your king. And I was like, oh, why would I want a rook pointed at my king? That doesn't seem good. But, something like h6 and good for you. You have a rook pointed at my king, but the rook is bad. And your pawn's very weak. Your king's weak. You have some weak pawns as well. So that would have been good for me. I also thought that if he played queen d5, I thought something like bishop e6, queen takes b7, and then not rook fb8, but rook ab8. Rook ab8 because you don't want, if you choose rook fb8, white can still see this rook, so this rook can't move. But rook ab8, if you take on a7, I take on a2. My rook's on your 7th rank. Your knight is loose. My bishop's lined up with your rook. I thought I was crushing here. But he played f3, and again, I thought about f5, but that same position rises, so I thought I did play f5, and he played queen d2, and I dropped my knight down to e5. He castled, and I played f4, played bishop f2, and I played bishop e6. So now I think this position is looking pretty great for me. I have 2 bishops pointed at the king. I'm going to pawn storm. I'm going to bring my rook over here. And white has ideas of h4, trying to get this rook into the game as well, but it just seems like my pieces are better. He plays knight d5, hitting my queen and trying to shut down that diagonal. And I play queen f7, prepared to play moves like c6 to move the knight and win the c-pawn. And then he plays what I consider a positional mistake, which is b3. And I think this is like a strategic mistake because if you look at this king is weak. There are all these holes around this king. These pieces are here, but they're not really defending the king. And there's also all these like hooks to get in there. So I'd love to see this move b3. I understand why he played it. He played it because if he just, does something like this, c6 hits, his knight needs to move, and then his c-pawn drops. But I played a5. He played knight c3. And here I thought for a while, with the intention, my original, what I was calculating was a4, knight takes, sack the exchange for the knight, take back. And I thought, like, my rook comes over here. This is weak. This is weak. This is weak. They're all loose pawns undefended. My pieces are pointed at your king. Like, I thought this was probably better for me. But I thought my position was so good that why rush it? Just why not bring this last rook in here? It turns out that this is the engine's top move. And it considers better for black. But what I didn't see is the top move here, which pause your video at home if you wanted to find this for your own. But the top move here is yes, you play a4, the knight takes, but then you take on c4 with a piece like your knight. And the point is, if white takes back with the bishop, you take back, they take back. That pawn was overloaded. It was defending too many things. You take the knight. And this is just crushing where you lift your other rook, you put your queen on the dark square diagonal, and white is probably getting checkmated. So I didn't see that that combo to play a4, knight takes, and then sack on c4. I didn't see that. And I think it's a instructive plan, a pattern, that I will hopefully know in the future. And also, yeah, the engine thought that my exchange sack was also fine. Just weak king, weak pieces. I probably should have just done this just because, like, it looks fun. And, like, you'll learn from that whether you win or lose. But instead, I was like, okay, fine, I'll play rook b8 and maybe do the same thing anyways. But now I have my rook here. Maybe I'll play b5. And he plays bishop d4, trying to offset my dark squared bishop. And here I play a move that, looks terrible, c5. And it looks very bad positionally because you think that the bishop moves, right, which he did do, and black is left with this backwards pawn. And, that very weak pawn. But I thought that, the engine wants white to do a move that I don't think is a very human move. It wants it to take my knight with his bishop, which is not very human because then you give black the bishop pair and you don't have a dark square bishop and your king's weak. And it just wants you to plop your knight on d5 and is saying that, like, you have no worries. Which, again, I don't know how human this is, but, like, I get it. I guess I just don't have enough of an attack like this, but it's scary. 2 rooks, 2 bishops, the queen, like, it's all pointed at your king. My opponent did play bishop f2, and here I played queen f6 with what I thought was a clever trap. My original intention is if queen takes d6, which my opponent thought for a while and did play, I thought I had this move, knight takes c4, where if you take back the knight, I take the knight with check, the king has to go to b1, and queen b2 is checkmate. So my opponent did take on d6, and I realized what I missed on this line with knight c4. So at home, if you're trying to improve, you should pause your video and tell me what is white's what is white going to do if I take on c4? And then also, part 2, I saw that this line was losing for me. It's not like lost, but I'm losing in this line. And I didn't even consider my second most natural move. Again, I moved too quick. But if I had thought about this natural move, I think I would definitely have played it because it's a pretty obvious and winning move. So tell me what that move is and what the plan is. So number 1, pause the video, find out what's the problem with knight c4. Number 2, find out what is black's winning move and combo of moves and why. Okay, assuming you have unpaused your video. So I did go for knight takes c4, and the issue with it is it loses to the spectacular move queen takes e6, check. The queen must take back, and then the bishop takes back on c4, pinning the queen to the king. Nothing better for black to do than to sack the queen for the bishop. The pawn takes back. You pick up the knight, and then white takes your pawn on c5 with their bishop, and you have an endgame with 6 pawns versus 5 pawns, and you're losing. White's going to play the rook here, and you're just worse. And so I saw this, once my opponent took on d6, I was like, oh, did I miss something? And I was like, oh, I did. And what I should have done is I should have been like, okay, that I knew that was losing. I knew it's down a pawn. I could calculate that far. I should have been like, well, let me see if I have anything else. And if I had just bothered to do that, I would have found the wonderful move because queen takes d6 is a blunder due to rook d8, exclamation point. And the point is, if queen takes c5, a very natural looking move, taking the pawn, knight d3 check hits the board, discovered attack. You can take back with the rook. You trade rooks. The bishop takes back, nothing better to do. And then white is getting mated due to queen takes c3. If king b1, queen b2 mates you again. If queen d1, you take on d3. Again, if you go here, a very similar thing will happen. Maybe the rook will come to d8 as well. And if you go to e1, moves like bishop c3 hit the board, which are also checkmate. Right? If this occurs, you're winning a couple different ways, mainly this though. Maybe white can sack their queen. But so really disappointing because I did trade into the losing endgame and I lost. Again, I was low on time. I don't think I had much notation, but I thought I played a pretty good game up to this point. I got the better position. I'm a little disappointed I didn't go for this pawn sack earlier. And then I'm really disappointed that, number 1, not good to just tunnel vision on one plan, right? Number 2, I saw this queen takes e6 line. I saw what I had missed originally. Also shouldn't be missing those, right? But it's very natural to calculate rook d8 because you attack the queen. It's on an open file, right? And if I had looked at rook d8, I would have definitely seen knight d3. It's just like a pretty simple combo. By the way, there are some other natural looking moves that fail, such as knight f, or not natural moves, but knight f7 may have been suggested by some of you, where you attack the queen, you attack the knight. The point being, if the queen drops back, you take here, and you're up a piece, right? 3 versus 2. But that loses due to e5, exclamation point. And the point is this knight can get into e4. Obviously, if you take with the queen, they're going to trade. They're up a pawn. And if you take with a knight, I think stuff like knight e4 is annoying for black to deal with. So I don't know how much notation I have of this game. Looks like I got about here, and just, yeah, like all my pieces are falling. All my pieces are passive. I'm down too much material, and I ended up, looks like I actually got pretty far in the notation. Looks like I got about here. And yeah, I'm just losing, right? Like these pawns are coming down the board. I'm down material. I have no active plans. He gets the better king, more active rook, better bishop. So A bad tournament for me result-wise. I went 0-3. Um, I didn't feel like I played my best chess today. It is what it is. Everyone has bad tournaments, myself included. I definitely think playing too much blitz chess is part of it, and not doing the normal training, like doing my tactics, etc., is also part of it. So definitely going to learn from these games, right? Like switching openings, I think hurt me in this game too, which going to deal with those lumps when you switch openings. Um, and I might switch from the Sicilian again. I don't know. I'm thinking about it, but yeah, that's what happened. So thanks for watching. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, trying to grow the channel, and I will have more tournament game reviews soon.